Namaste and welcome to first live episode of React Bits. So this is my first live episode I'm trying, and in this episode I'll talk in general about Flutter, and I'll ask any questions that you have for me in the live chat. So if you want answer to my if you want answers, if you want to ask question, please begin it with QSTN in capital letters so that it will be hard for me to miss. Hello Adarsa, hi, good evening from Nepal. And today let's talk general, why Flutter, why I'm currently doing Flutter. So I started programming back in 2010. Hello Ranjit. So I was in class 9, so I started programming then. I did a little bit of programming before that because in our schools we were taught QBasics from I think 5 or 6 class, but I was so interested that by the time I reached class 9 I started looking at alternatives. So yes, others I'm doing that. So I was looking at alternatives. So QBasic was just command line, there was no GUI with QBasic, and I think at that time we were using Windows XP, and I was so impressed by the GUI of that Windows XP GUI. So I started to search for alternatives, how I could write GUI code for Windows XP. Then I found that at that time there was Visual Basic from Microsoft. The code was similar to QBasic, but we could use GUI. So we could develop the whole Windows system, the Windows GUI, like buttons and windows and dialogues and everything. So that was interesting to me. So I started learning that, and I think I was in 9 or 10. I developed a simple school management system in Visual Basic. So it was very simple. My computer teacher was quite impressed. He even said that they might implement it in the school, but they did not. So that's not the issue, but I learned quite a lot. And at that time we were just using dial-up internet, 128 kbps, and that was also shared between 2 households, and it was quite slow. And the problem with dial-up was that we used telephone connections, and telephone connections were costly, so you will be charged per minute usage. So if you used dial-up internet during your day hours, it will cost around I don't remember the exact price, but 2 minutes will equal to 1 call during the day, and after 10 p.m. at night 8 minutes would equal to 1 call. So that will drastically reduce the charge in the telephone line. So I used to wake up whole night after 10 till the 4 a.m. in the morning, searching for Visual Basic tutorials and downloading example projects available. At that time there were no like Udemy. I think I did not even hear about Linda. I don't think it was started yet. So it was a difficult time, but that is how I started my programming journey. After that I continued my studies in A levels, and in A levels computing. So one interesting fact was, in A levels computing we were supposed to submit a project, a report and a code of a project report. And what I did was, the school management system that I made in class 9, that is what I submitted in my A levels studies for A levels paper, computer science study, computing study. So that was interesting thing. And then during A levels I had few good friends. We even started some company, did some work here and there, did some small works. So that's the beginning of my career. And after that, I think in after I joined bachelor's, so I started working freelance. I was developing a few websites in mostly static websites at that time, and I was learning PHP side by side after A levels. So I got few opportunities. There were lots of helpers, uh, boosters in my career, my friends, my teachers who helped me a lot. uh, and one thing was, I never said no or I don't know. I was always ready to learn something. I learned everything. So my programming journey, it did start with school. They taught me basics of programming there, but rest I used, I did it myself. So I learned myself. When in A levels, when they were teaching C programming, I was already learning C programming. And in bachelor's, when they were teaching C++, I had already completed my C++. I have learned the basics of those programming languages. I was already writing PHP codes and doing dynamic websites by the time I reached bachelor's. So that was basically the main thing. The main theme here is that you need to learn yourself. Until and unless you are motivated to learn by yourself, you are motivated to uh, self study, you will not be uh, a good programmer. I guess that is my point of view. And Izon, regarding your question, without state management, so if you develop an app without state management, I think it's okay if it is a simple app, one page application or one or two page application, where you don't have lots of data that are passed between one part of the app to another part. I think that's okay if you do not use state management. But think about a scenario: you have a database somewhere remote, you use API, and you have thousands of different types of data that are loaded in your application. And those just for example, let's take user authentication. So you authenticate your user over API that is stored in server somewhere. And in your application, in every page, whenever user moves from one page to another to perform any action, you need to verify that user is logged in. So if you do not use state management, there are two options to verify that user is logged in every places in your app. First one is either make a API call every time you go to another page. That's a huge mistake, because we are hitting servers many times, we are losing users data, as well as we are making our server request crowded. And next approach would be, you'll pass the user authentication data from one widget to another. Talking about Flutter, you'll pass from one widget to another, one screen to another. And that's a huge problem, because your UI gets coupled with your data, and that's the very bad thing. If you want to change any part in the UI, you'll have to make lots of adjustments. Your data flow, everything will have to be changed. So I guess that is not beneficial. So on it is fine if you are using if you are making a single page application or one or two page applications with very few data that are shared between multiple pages. Or if the data is, even if you are making 10 page application, but data from one page or data from one place is not shared in other places, so then it's fine. But if your app grows beyond that, you need to use state management. Suresh, technology that you have used till now and your best technology. So it's not the technology that is best or technology that persists. So technology is ever changing. So technology that I began with and I'm still using, it's been 6, 7, 8 years. So I'm still using WordPress for my clients. I develop websites for my clients in WordPress. And I still use PHP, Laravel framework if I have backend works to do. And I still use React.js, so that is another. So it I think the best technology depends on the perspective and tasks at hand. For someone, Python and Django might be best. For me, what I have been doing, one and what gives me the opportunity to solve the problem for the client, that is the best technology. So currently I'm involved with React.js, Flutter, PHP, so that is the best technology for me. Others, is only Flutter enough for good livelihood? So my take is, I started as a designer. I even designed few books. After that I started programming. I learned C++, I even learned Java. I did Android native for quite some time. Then I learned Laravel. I learned WordPress. I even did WordPress theme customization, theme development, plugin development. So I believe sticking yourself to only one technology is not good enough. So my suggestion to you is learn the basics of programming. Okay, as long as you learn the basics, you know the fundamentals, you understand the fundamentals, you can switch to any language or framework, because only the syntax and the outer things are different. So inside, core of the programming is the same for all. So for loop, while loop, conditionals, logics, all those things are same for the same for any language or framework you move into. So my suggestion is learn the fundamentals, not the technology. Learn the fundamentals of technology. Izon, kun state management use? Okay, so which state management to use? Again, it depends on your perspective. I tried a few. I tried block, I tried provider, I tried redux. So I used to do redux with sorry redux with React.js a lot. But in Flutter, what I felt comfortable with was provider. So currently I'm using provider in most of my projects, and from the same developer there is a riverpod new and upgraded version, you can even say improved version of provider. So I am exploring that as well. So I might switch to riverpod for my new project. So try it yourself, try the few of them, and whichever feels good to you, whichever is easier for you, use that for state management in your application. Do you work in company or you are a freelancer? So I'm not involved permanently or full-time in any company. I do work with companies, but in contract basis. So I think I work as freelancer. So my Flutter UI challenge you are looking at in my screen. So I'm using Firebase. So this is completely based on Firebase. I'm using Firebase authentication. I'm using Firestore database. I'm using Firebase Analytics. Those are the completely Firebase ecosystem. So Flutter UI challenge is completely based on Firebase ecosystem. How to access WordPress dashboard from Cpanel? So WordPress dashboard, I don't think it can be accessed from Cpanel. You need to have a either domain setup or IP setup for that, so that you can access the WordPress database from that IP or from that domain. So I'm sorry about that. And Ranjit, ezone. Yes, so thank you Ranjit for your answer. Yeah, so whichever you feel comfortable with, that is the best state management approach for you. Programming student, which programming language do you like the most to work? So up until now, in my 10 years of experience, I have felt most comfortable with Flutter, not the programming language, but the framework itself. It feels so intuitive, it is so easier to work with Flutter, and the complete ecosystem is so good, it is so easy to install and move forward, that I'm in love with Flutter. That is why I'm completely invested right now in Flutter. I do here and there small works, but I mostly use Flutter. So talking about programming language, I think I felt quite easier, quite understanding with Python. So Python was one of the language that I felt most comfortable with. After that, Flutter is the framework that I felt most comfortable with. So that's that. Izon. So while making app with Firebase as your backend, there is on, so you need you need to pay after reaching certain limits. So Firebase has some the kind of pricing structure. It is free for basic uses, like if your app doesn't grow a lot, if it doesn't have a large user base, just for development purpose, then it's free. But when you go live and you have hundreds of thousands of users, you'll have to pay, because Firebase and Firestore services are pricing is calculated in the access model. Like for Firestore database, you'll have to pay for read write counts, so definitely you'll have to pay for Firebase as backend. How is Flutter for web app? Is there any good examples of website developed by Flutter? So Raul, so Flutter for web is not yet ready for production. There are few examples, quite good examples. Maybe I'll share in the description. I don't have it right now, so I can share it later in my Facebook page. Search for React Bits or my profile. So, but you have to remember, Flutter Web is still in beta. It is not recommended for production. You can run quite a few things in web. Right now you can see that my Flutter UI challenge here, it is running in desktop in Linux. This can run also in web. If I switch to Chrome, I can run it in web as well. But the problem is it is not yet completely ready. So let me run in production, run in web while I'm talking. So yeah, so still there is a long way to go for web app with Flutter. Ranjit, what is the framework and how does it differ from programming language? Okay, so a programming language is bare bones. So C is a programming language, C++ is a programming language, Java is a programming language, and framework is something that is built upon the programming language. A framework provides certain abstraction that makes it easier for you to develop certain applications. So for example, Dart is a programming language here, and Flutter is the framework that uses Dart programming language. So Dart is the programming language, but Flutter is a framework, because Flutter provides lots of other toolings and lots of other ecosystem tools to help you develop mobile applications. So Dart in itself is just a programming language, but Flutter provides lots of tools for you to create a mobile application. So I think that is the difference of programming language and the framework. So for example, React.js is a programming language, and JavaScript is a programming language, and React.js is the framework for JavaScript. Can you share the knowledge about Deno? So yeah, Deno is still in beta version, I think, and also Deno is something similar to Node.js. It uses, I think, Node.js runtime and similar things. I have not much explored Deno still, so I can't say much about that. What about Node.js using backend Flutter? So Flutter is completely agnostic to whatever you use as a backend. If you check my YouTube channel, you can see I have done a tutorial with Flutter and Apprite. Apprite is another open source backend server that is currently in development. So Flutter doesn't limit you to one particular backend service or one particular API. So what you need is, for Flutter apps to work, you need to connect it to API. So backend is just a API. So if you develop it with Node.js or Python and Django or Flask or Laravel or anything, so it doesn't matter. So Flutter works with any backend. Just you have to have a nice API, REST API, or WebSockets, or anything that you can develop in backend that Flutter can connect to. So it doesn't matter if your backend is written in Node.js or Flutter or anything. Okay, that's that. Rahul, regarding your question, you can see that my Flutter UI challenge is running here in web. So this is the running in web. You can see most of the things work by default. I have not changed any code. It runs, it works, but like this some of the code breaks. So some of the others work. See, even animations and everything works, but there are a few things that might not currently work on web, and lots of plugins don't have web support yet, so you have to be careful. It is not yet recommended for production. Is Laravel plus Flutter plus Python a good combination for our career? Okay, Rahul, I have already said before, uh, it's up to you to choose your tools. What you have to do is you have to have the techniques to solve the problems for your client. So if you can solve their problem with Python or Flutter, it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter to them whether you use Flutter, Python or Laravel. But I can say you this, currently there are lots of job opportunities in Laravel, Flutter and Python in Nepal and beyond. So I think you are good for now, but you'll always have to be careful. You'll always have to be learning and exploring, because technology is ever changing. That is why always focus on the fundamentals. So if you know the fundamentals of mobile app development, you can use Flutter or React Natives or any other framework that might come in the future to develop the mobile app. Or if you know the web fundamentals of web and web technology, you can develop it in Laravel, Flutter or Python or any other language. It's just a matter of learning. So if you know the fundamentals of programming, you can learn any programming language. That's for you, Rahul. SQLite, backend, Flutter. Okay, I think SQLite, again, there is no backend without API. So for backend to work, you do not connect your mobile app directly to the database in your server. So if you have confusion about this, please go through my Medium article, that is common misunderstanding between beginner mobile app developers. So you need to understand few things, like your app does not connect to your database in the server. SQLite is most commonly used for offline database. So if your Flutter app wants to store offline data, you can use SQLite in the device. But connecting to backend is mobile always connects through some kind of API. So again, I told you before, it doesn't matter what is behind the API. You are using SQLite or MongoDB or MySQL, it doesn't matter. So that's for your query. Is media query enough for responsiveness of Flutter application? Any other practices? So yes, media query is enough. Also there are other things like orientation and so many things, but any other practices is like there are already some frameworks that use the media query and provide you the high level API around the media query, so that it is easier for you to use. For example, there is responsive framework by Codelessly and another, I think, responsive builder or something by another developer. So you can explore those. They use the media query and provide you with more high level API, so that it is easier for you to develop responsive applications. Jinkiri, Firebase. Yes, you can use Firebase for backend. So as long as you understand Flutter and Firebase ecosystem, you can integrate properly. But you have to understand that Firebase pricing model is like per operation. So like for Firebase storage, you will be charged for MBs downloaded and MBs stored in the storage. So you have to be careful around that. Otherwise, it's good. How much we can get a salary? Okay, so programming student, it depends on who your client is, how you deal with the client, and what is your experience is. So I think I set my price based on the capability of client, how much they can afford, as well as what is my level, how much I can expect. So that is how I decide on my pricing. Medium article. Okay, I started mobile app development directly by learning Flutter. It is worthy than learning the native language. So again, I believe going native, having some basic knowledge of mobile development and native development is required even for Flutter, because say you want to access a camera from your Flutter application, you'll have to integrate the native plugins and carry out the setups they have listed in the pub, so that you can access the native mobile. So you need to understand that you need some little bit of knowledge and understanding of native, but even without that you are completely capable of doing the application development from Flutter itself. So I think it's best to have the fundamentals. Again, I'm focusing on fundamentals. It's always best to have the fundamentals. You need to know the fundamentals of mobile application, and coming to Flutter, you need to understand the fundamentals of cross-platform and hybrid mobile application development. So you have to understand some of the basics of those things. Pradeep Kumar, I have learned UI designing. What should I learn next for backend and advanced? So you have learned. I hope you mean you have learned basic design UI designing in Flutter. So I believe next you can explore is working with APIs. There are open APIs like TMDB APIs and some other APIs where you can get an API key and integrate it with your mobile application. So use those APIs first and then move on to advanced topics like integrating with Firebase or integrating with your own custom backend, or you can follow my Flutter plus AppWrite tutorial series, those kind of things. Programming student, have you worked on machine learning algorithms? I'm sorry, so I've not yet explored the machine learning in Flutter or any other languages. I think that's a to do for me. I have been wanting to do that for quite some time. Others, while doing API call, if response code is not 200, I throw exception. Then after I don't handle it, I leave as it is. It was not causing any visible error in the app. I know it's not good, but is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. When you build an app in release mode, it doesn't make any difference, but it's always good, always recommended to handle the error so that users know what is going on. So if you don't handle the error, there might not be any feedback provided to the user, so that they will not know what's going on in the background. So that's recommended. What is the difference between Firebase and Node.js? What is the algorithm of Flutter? I'm sorry, Izon, I don't understand your question. What is the algorithm of Flutter? And programming student, regarding the difference between Firebase and Node.js, so Firebase is a completely managed, already hosted backend where you are provided API and you integrate those APIs with your application, and Firebase works with web, mobile, and Android, iOS, Flutter, and React Native. So Firebase is a complete backend solution hosted and provided by Google, where you just sign up and you are given lots of tools and technologies that you can directly integrate with different platforms. However, Node.js is a framework. Again, it's a JavaScript backend framework where you can develop your own APIs and your own applications. And Izon, regarding my article in Medium, if you search for most common misconceptions of beginner mobile app developers, you can easily find that. If not, find my Facebook page, I'll post it there. Ranjit, Amazon is building a platform called Honeycode. We can build applications without coding skills. How is it gonna affect programmers? So I believe there are always lots of alternatives. So even right now, there is like Ionic framework, there is React Native, there is Angular native, Vue native, and native script. Also there is Flutter and native iOS, native Android. So there are lots of different alternatives. Always there are lots of alternatives. So I don't think coming Honeycode will completely make us make Flutter unrealistic or Flutter useless. So I think that's, you have to consider that. While using Node.js, PHP, MySQL backend database, then shall we buy? Okay, Ezone, I think you have to learn a bit more regarding the basic concepts of web. So if you want your mobile application installed on your user's application to access data you have provided in your database, you need to host it somewhere. You need a domain, you need a server. So I think you need a hosting. Adarsa, do you think Flutter desktop can replace Electron? I will not say replace, but again, like before, always there are alternatives, and people will choose to stick with the technology they know and they love to work with. So Flutter, personally, I already love to work with it for developing mobile applications. So if it supports desktop application without changing much of the code, and I can use the same code, same app that I developed for mobile, just little bit of changes here and there, and I can run it in desktop, then I'll definitely choose Flutter desktop over Electron. But for some JavaScript developer doing React.js and JavaScript, he might definitely still choose Electron over Flutter. So I don't think it is going to replace anytime soon. But in the long run, who knows what happens with technology, because it is ever changing fact. Like there are no hard and fast rule regarding technology, what is going to happen or what comes next, because few years back there was no Flutter, there was no React Native, the only option was going native, and then there came Ionic, Angular, so many other platforms, React Native, and right now Flutter came, and Flutter is already quite popular, so we can't say anything regarding that. Junkiri, sorry, how much time did it take for you to learn Flutter? So for me, the interesting fact was I started Flutter and I started doing these UIs and started to share these UIs in my GitHub, in my social networks and YouTube. So I got a job offer or project offer in just 1.5 months after I started with Flutter. But one thing to remember is, before that I had 8 years of programming experience in various languages like C, C++, Java, Android Native, React Native, and so on. So you have to remember that. But it doesn't matter how long it takes for you. Only thing is, you need to progress, you need to learn every day, you need to work towards learning. So if you are interested from your heart, if you want to learn, then it's possible and you can learn it faster. What is the difference between Upright and Firebase? So these are just trivial questions. So Firebase is provided by Google, Upright is open source, so you can explore it yourself. Firebase has a complete set of solutions right now. Upright is still in development, so Upright lacks quite a few functionalities, but it is getting there. So Firebase will charge you for usage, but Upright is open source. You can buy a server anywhere and you will not be charged for Upright. You will only have to pay for your hosting server. That's the main difference right now. .2x is faster than JS. Is it true? I'm not sure. I have not tried it. So I have not benchmarked it. So if people are saying, then they must have a reason for that. But even if it is not faster than JS, it doesn't matter, because right now the mobile devices and our desktop devices are so powerful that even if our codes are not that much performant, it still works. But we must always strive to have the highest performance possible, like Flutter does in their application. So I think it might be faster than JS, but for web, I think it is still behind JS, because it is still in beta and there is long way for it to go. Programming, which tutorial is coming soon? So I think next I'll be exploring Riverpod tutorial for state management in general. So I have not made a complete introduction to state management kind of thing. So maybe I'll explore state management and riverpod in my next tutorials, I guess. So I'm not sure. Dart backend, so I don't have experience with Dart backend. I have not done much of Dart code apart from Flutter, so I'm always doing Flutter. So with Laravel and PHP, I'm already experienced. I have 4 or 5 years of experience using that. So right now I stick with that. But maybe later, if I'm able to explore, I might use Dart as a backend. Rahul, so I have completed my bachelor's in computer science, CSIT. I've completed bachelor's degree. I don't mind sharing my education qualification. And thank you, Junkiri, for being here. Thank you, everyone. So I think we are done for today. Thank you, everyone, for being here, participating in my live stream. Hope to see you again soon in more live streams. Please leave a feedback, how you felt, how it was, what did you like, and what I can improve on, so that in my next stream I'll try to improve. I'll try to improve as much as possible, give you the good impression and give you good knowledge, share my experience, and hope to see you again. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.